I'm joined now by Ifeoma Abidoye, fintech practitioner and vice president of Binary Stream Limited, to review some of this week's top stories. Great to have you on the show, Ifeoma. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we wanted to talk about the issue with Microsoft Office and Teams, the antitrust scrutiny that's going on now in big tech. Tell us what's happening there.
So what has happened here is that Microsoft has a very what some people will call a monopoly over the video conferencing sector. Slack, one of its competitors, has said, you know what, this is an unfair advantage. You're bundling your Microsoft Office product, your PowerPoint, your Outlook, all together with Teams, which is a video conferencing solution. And that means that anyone who has any of those products have to get the video conferencing service.
Even if they don't want it.
Even if they don't want it. And what has happened is that has reduced the market share that others would probably have had. And this has come on the heels of, you know, a report of that violation in the European to the European Commission. And they've said this can't continue. So they've had to unbundle that in the European market. Actually, this isn't news. It's happened in the European market already. So what they've done now is spread that across to other regions so that before such event occurs, they're already taking care of those issues.
Yeah, but the question is, as a consumer, sometimes it's nice to have a one-stop suite of apps, right, in one place, right? And for the companies, isn't this just really part of innovation, finding verticals within your industry that you can build new products in? So
yeah, that's one way of looking at it. But look at it holistically. So what's happening is that when one player has all that power, it means that a lot of the others do not have so much advantage, and that means everyone is using just that player. When everyone is using just that player for business solutions, it means that you are also crippling or stifling innovation. When just one person has all the market share, there's no incentive to innovate or look for ways to make consumers happy.
And of course, there's a pricing issue because competition does actually impact prices, and that's a great thing for consumers. Yeah, interesting. We'll be following that story very closely. Another tech story: Tesla's shares are falling, and it's had issues with deliveries. Is this a case of people just kind of rebelling against the founder, or is there an operational issues or technology issues with Tesla? What's going on?
I mean, you can't rule out people rebelling against Elon Musk. I mean, he doesn't have so many friends, as some would say. But the thing is that it's a bigger picture. So Tesla is sort of the high-end electric vehicle producer, and you have others who are mid-range, able to service the market demand without necessarily being expensive. So if you're looking for electric vehicles, you're looking for something that's practical, affordable. You don't necessarily need high-end. You're just looking for, a lot of people who use electric vehicles are looking to cut down on emissions. So if you have that solution from one Chinese manufacturer or someone else who's giving you a price range where you can afford, you're going to go for that instead of the high-end Tesla vehicle.
And who are the big competitors to Tesla now?
So you have people like Rivian, and you have other Chinese manufacturers as well coming up. And you even have the Hyundai, you have Kia, they have other very cheaper models of EV that people are more readily able to afford than the high-end Tesla
and you know, the interesting thing about some of the Chinese manufacturers is also they have access to the raw materials.
Exactly.
You know, and that's a value add. But, you know,
with labor as well.
Cheaper labor, of course, and India also a big source of outsourcing for global manufacturing. But there's also the brand issue, right? Tesla has had that brand. The cars look quite nice, very suave, very cool. Don't you think that somehow in the long term, Tesla will still emerge pretty okay out of this because it has that brand equity?
So, yes. So that's the point there. Now, so if you look at their strategy, they're saying that there's no way they can compete in that mid-range, because earlier this year there was supposed to be a launch of a lower range vehicle that should be about $30,000 or under, but they cancelled that, saying that there's no way they can really meet up with competition in that area. So what they're focusing right now is where their strengths lie, and that would be what any business should do anyway. Right now, Tesla is looking at moving with the robot taxis, that self-drive cars, and so people who are really, you know, tech savvy, interested in that, are looking at the kind of consumers they're looking to service, as opposed to, you know, the regular more practical looking for consumers.
Very interesting times for Tesla. The report we read earlier also showed that the last time sales fell was also in the pandemic era. So this is it's quite a big deal for Tesla and of course shareholders, and we'll see how the market ultimately reacts to that. Let's talk about a story much closer to home here, which is around the student loan bill that has now become an act signed into law from President Tinubu. But this has been shrouded in so much talk, controversy. In principle, a great thing for Nigerian students. You know, what do you make of that bill? What's your assessment of the bill and its impact, or the act rather, and its impact?
So it's a good one. I believe this is a welcome development for students in Nigeria. Many times you hear, you know, a lot of people have to drop out because they don't have funds to. Now, this act has made it possible to get some form of financing for your studies. And the good thing about it is just not formal education. So you have vocational trainings covered. You have anything that is sort of going to improve you post-secondary school, you have this act covering financing to that. And the good thing about this is that unlike the previous bill that was the act that was repealed, you have you have the possibility right now to also get loans regardless of your parents' credit standing. Initially, there was a condition.
They had fixed some amounts for income in your household.
Yes, that's on the one hand. But initially, if your parents had credit status default, you were not allowed to. But now that has been repealed because everyone understands that every individual is different from their parents.
You have your credit status in your own right.
Yes, exactly. Right. And now what you just mentioned, there's also that condition that has also been taken out that says if you didn't have up to 500,000 as an income in the home, that's the only time you can take the loan. But now it doesn't matter, whatever the loan, whatever your income, if you need the loan, you're able to get it. And I think that that's a good development. So people are able to access education, especially with the increasing cost of tuition, which, you know, universities have said that they need to increase tuition to be able to meet the demands of running the business.
Interesting. Of course, there's a broader issue of the budget being able to fund and support the terms of that act in the long run, so that it doesn't become a stop-and-start policy. But good news there for Nigerians, particularly Nigerian students. We'd also like to obviously see more investment in education as a whole. Let's talk about another domestic story, this idea that the government has mooted about issuing foreign currency denominated bonds to local investors. I mean, is this a sort of mopping up money supply? Is this about stabilization of the exchange rate? Help us unpack the dynamics of this. How would it work?
Okay, I'm sure everyone in Nigeria knows that there's been some sort of exchange rate, volatility, better to say. And what the government is trying to do here is mop up dollars that are in domiciliary accounts, for instance, and also from people in diaspora who are able to bring in currency, foreign currency into the country. Now, otherwise, this USD or foreign currency are just sitting dormant in accounts in Nigeria. So it's better, the government and the economic team has reasoned and said, it's better to put this money to use and then manage the exchange rate. Yesterday, exchange rates closed about, I think, 1,240, thereabout. And gradually, we see that the government is able to gradually help to stabilize exchange rate. So what this will do is help release some more additional USD into circulation. And when that, because essentially exchange rates is a demand and supply issue. If you're able to increase supply, you're able to reduce the pressure on the naira, and then you're able to stabilize the exchange rate to a more manageable
and of course
amount.
The thing with these sorts of instruments is that confidence is key. I mean, I envisage a world in which Nigerian holders of dollars in their DOMs will ultimately subscribe, because, right, don't you think they're essentially taking sovereign risk, which is risk-free, you would argue. What are your thoughts on how well these instruments will do in the market? Of course, we don't have the full structure or how this will work exactly.
So I think it will do well. I think it will do well. I mean, it's too early to... It will do well. It will do well because we have people who still do business in Nigeria, who still believe in Nigeria, who still... whose focus is in Nigeria. Yes, regardless of what's happening, because there's a lot of risk. But don't forget that when there's a lot of risk, there's a lot of rewards. And that's what some investors are looking for.
All right, no problem. Thank you very much for that. It'll be interesting to see how this actually works out in principle. Of course, people are always looking for new asset classes. Well, this is not a new asset class, it's a bond, but the structure is different to what we've seen before. Ifeoma, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for coming on the show and speaking to us. That's Ifeoma Abidoye, FinTech Guru and Vice President of Binary Streams Limited.